That's a cute transition. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome to the special edition show. This is AMREX, and I met him through. Actually, I'm just now kind of meeting him. We've emailed, but he's been on Paul's Roundtable, and he's very interesting. He's from Hawaii, but you're Japanese, right? And
Yes.
have you always lived in Hawaii, like your whole life?
There's an echo effect.
Yeah, I was doing that earlier when I could hear myself kind of echo, but now I don't hear it. Is it still doing it?
Yes, it's still doing it.
Well, I'm not sure what to do. I don't
I don't either.
it sounds fine on my end. Um, so you grew up in Hawaii? You've lived there like your whole life?
Yeah, I've lived here most of my life. I don't want to dox myself, but I have lived outside Hawaii for various years as an adult. The problem with Hawaii is that it's so small that if I say almost anything about myself, I reveal myself.
Right. But yeah, I thought it'd be interesting because we were talking, you watched my toy video, I guess, when I went to Illinois, and we were talking about the toys and talking about the 80s. And I don't know about everybody else, but somebody said, can you mute YouTube and just listen through the StreamYard? Maybe that's what the problem is. I don't know if you have YouTube up.
Oh, I see. Wait, yeah, let me
That's
close the
probably
YouTube.
what it is.
Well,
I've done that
yeah.
before too.
Oops, yeah, that was my fault. Sorry
Oh,
about that, guys.
okay, that'll probably fix it. Um, but yeah, I thought it would be fun to talk to you because since you did grow up in Hawaii, maybe things were different. Like, I used to work with this guy, and he grew up in, I think, Indonesia or near Indonesia, and he loved the 80s, and he would always talk about like how he got the best of both worlds because he got a lot of the music that came out of like England, and then he got a lot of stuff from the United States too. And it was always fun talking to him about like some of the bands that were more popular over there weren't so popular here, and just how things were different. So I'm assuming you're probably around my age because you remember a lot of that stuff.
Actually, I'm exactly between you and Paul.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So then you're
So,
a Gen Xer then. So you grew up
yes.
in the 80s then.
Yep.
So you're probably
Yep.
like my brother's age or something. He's like in between me and Paul too. Um, so yeah, I think to me the 80s were like the best decade, and it's fun to reminisce about it because nowadays they're just so awful and the music sucks. And I know we sound dated, but it was funny because yesterday we put the Christmas tree up and there was a younger person there, and I have a Nintendo Christmas ornament, and this person's 21, did not know Nintendo, what it
Wow.
was, and I was just like, man, I feel old because when I was growing up, I didn't have an Atari, but I knew what they were.
Hmm.
And if somebody had one, I would be like, oh, an Atari. Now, maybe not a ColecoVision or something, but I don't know. It was just kind of funny to me.
Yeah. So, actually, here's how I show my age. Nintendo started getting big around the time when I stopped playing video games. So I kind of think of that as after my time because my big thing used to be Atari.
Yeah, see, that was before my time because I was like a kid, I guess, when Atari came out because that was
Hmm.
the early 70s or late 70s, early 80s, whenever Atari came out. I'm not sure
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember my friend had a Nintendo, and I was probably like in the third grade, and I stayed the night at her house, and she had Mario Brothers, and all I wanted to do was play Mario Brothers and not talk to my friend because the Mario was more exciting than she was. And
Whoops.
then I finally got like my own Nintendo, and it was great. My aunt was in the hospital, and she was like, "If you and your friends clean the house and do something, I'll get you a Nintendo." And so we did, and I ended up getting a Nintendo. And I remember she got me the Power Pad. I don't know if you guys remember that, where you could run on it. And it never really worked that great because it came with world class track meet. And so I would take my hands and just do this really fast games. But yeah, Nintendo was fun. And I kept up with everything until like PS2. And that's when I stopped buying stuff because those video game consoles are so expensive now. It's like $500, $600 now.
Wow.
One. And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot because I don't play that much. I don't have time to play that much anymore. So I don't see the point in spending all that money on it.
Wow. Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I stopped playing video. I used to be video game addicted, and then I stopped cold turkey around 85. And ever since then, I've played like maybe 10 sessions in 35 years.
Wow.
When I say session, I mean like I'll play like a game for like 5 minutes and that's it.
Yeah. That's kind of how I am, you know. I used to get really addicted. And even when I was like in my early 20s and I lived alone, there's some games I just get super hooked on. I still do this once in a blue moon with Dr. Mario. I'll put it on and I'll just play it. But I always feel kind of guilty, like, man, I just wasted all this time because I already know I'm good at it and I don't need to play it more. But there's an arcade here in town and it's great because it's like $5 and you can play all day. And they have tons and tons of games and they expanded it too. Sadly, they almost went out of business because of COVID because they had shut down because we didn't have a mandate that you had to lock down, but I guess that they had to do certain measures like you had to have social distancing and all this. And I don't know the way it went. So he had to shut down, and the community came together and they raised a ton of money for him. And the guy that owns it's real sweet, and he always lets me in free because I've made things for him or for the arcade. And it's almost like a toy museum in there too. He has like a Teddy Ruxpin in there and all this other cool stuff. But they have Dr. Mario, and that's almost all I ever do is like sit at Dr. Mario and like play that the whole time we're there. So it's easy to get addicted to video games, but I did like some of the PS2 games, but to me, I don't know. I like Nintendo games are probably my favorite.
See, here's where I show my age again. I mean, I've never played Mario in my entire life.
Wow.
I have actually no idea how it works at all because I belong to like the Space Invaders generation.
Wow. You should play Mario. It's a lot of fun. All the Mario games are fun. Like even the newer ones. I played some of the new ones and they're a lot of fun too. I don't know, that's just a fun game. And when I was a kid, I used to watch the cartoon and I was like super into Mario. I had a Mario cake for my birthday one year. But yeah, when I was a kid, maybe I would have done better in school if I hadn't had a Nintendo. Because all I liked to do was play Nintendo and watch movies. And I don't know, that was my life back when I was a kid. Now it's kind of
Well,
the kids just want to stare at like I don't know, screens and phone screens and tablets. Like I was at the store yesterday and all these people were walking around like zombies staring at their phones, not paying attention to anything and wearing masks.
yeah. Um, I don't blame you about the school thing. Well, I don't. I'm just laughing here because just the whole mention of school, I could just scream about it for hours and hours and hours, and what a waste of time it was. But
Yeah.
um, yeah. Anyway, so you brought up someone from Indonesia and how their experience, had some overlap with the American one and some didn't, and that's kind of the way things were here. I get nostalgic a lot because what I don't like about Hawaii now is how Hawaii has kind of I mean, I know I talk a lot about separatism on Paul's roundtable, but the reality is that paradoxically here, in the last 20 odd years, people talk about secession every day. It's a normal topic on the one hand, but on the other hand, culturally, we're becoming more and more Americanized. So it's really kind of a funny paradox.
Yeah, it's like globalism because it's like that everywhere. Like you can go like anywhere in the country and all the places are fairly the same. We all have the same stores and the same restaurants and things like that where there's not much difference. Like you in the South, when Paul moved here, he thought like, oh, there'd be more rebel spirit with all the stuff going on. And it's kind of like, no, most of the people from here are like transplants from somewhere else. You have to like get out in the country to find like true people that are from Arkansas because like Fayetteville is not. We were trying to think of our friends last night, and there was only like maybe three of us that are actually from this
Hmm.
Arkansas. But yeah, so what kind of stuff did you like growing up? Like so if you're like in between me and Paul, you're probably maybe too old to remember like or you maybe remember the toys like from when I was little. But I don't know, were you into like He-Man or any of that? Because I know a lot of people love He-Man, including me.
No, I was part of the He-Man generation, but that wasn't really my thing. I mean, I'll get to He-Man eventually. That's part of what I was kind of mentally prepping for. But um, since I belong to the in-between generation, let me give you examples of how Hawaii has become semi-globalized. Like, for example, in the 70s, we used to have a lot of local music, meaning that if you turned on the radio, it would be like a random mix of like US top 40, and then we had our own artists, and which are completely unknown outside Hawaii, and they were big stars and so on and so forth. And I kind of miss that now, because you turn on the radio now and it's all imported from the mainland. I mean, the radio stations, they just make a contract with some outside supplier, and then they just play the same junk that's in the other 49 states. It's lame.
Yeah, and don't really get me, I don't think, in the music that I don't know if you ever saw the movie Coal Miner's Daughter, but like Loretta Lynn, she her husband and her, they went to all these radio stations to get the people to play her albums, and she was nobody, and somebody finally did. But it's like nowadays, I don't think you would never have a shot at something like that where you could just go organically and get big like that. It's everything's corporatized and globalized.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. I mean, a Loretta Lynn type story used to be possible here. Um, I mean, they even had this. I mean, back in the old day, just, 40 years ago. For example, one radio station would just have like a talent contest, and these professional level, like high school kids, would show up, and it was possible to be a complete nobody and become a star here, and that's just not really possible anymore. Um, I'm not going to say that there's no local music being made. It still exists, but it's been ghettoized now. You have to go to like a special radio station to listen to Hawaii-made music. Before, it was just easy. You just turn on to any radio station, and it was there, and it competed directly against whatever was big in the 70s, like disco or whatever. It was like 50-50, and now unless you seek it out, it's 0-100.
Yeah, that's too bad. Music is so bad nowadays. But like, it seems like it's all because I'm not even against new music. I'm not like, oh, I'm old and I hate all new things. I love listening to things I've never heard that if I like them. But like my boss at my job is a lot younger than me, and we had to drive to like go somewhere together in her car, and she had this awful music on, and like all the kids, like I call them kids, they're like in their 20s, but they all knew the words to this stuff, and it was like, what is this crap? I don't even know. Like nobody plays instruments anymore. Nobody can really sing. Everything's auto tuned, and it's just I don't know. That's why I always joke, because I always joke with Adam, because he's like, "You've heard this song, haven't you? This was a popular song." And I'm like, I stopped really listening to the radio after like 1998. And once in a while, I'd get into a band. Like I liked Velvet Revolver, and I had friends that were really into music, and they were in a band, and they were older, and they kind of were the ones that told me about them too. They were like, "Oh, well, some of the guys from Guns N' Roses used to be in this band, and so they were pretty good." But that's how I would get into stuff, more like somebody would tell me. And that was like 2005. So I don't even know what's on the radio anymore. Everything seems to be just like hip hop, and I don't know. And it's funny because Paul did some video and he's talking about Madonna sang some song, and I wanted to correct him. It was actually Lady Gaga. And I don't like any of that shit either, but I knew who it was just because you can't help but hear it. And I think it was called Born This Way or something. He was talking in some video about it. It's just like, I can't stand any of that stuff. And I know Madonna was a skank, but at least she had some good songs, like back in the 80s and even some in the 90s. But most of these people now, I don't really know what they're famous for, except like showing their bodies off.
I stopped listening to music in the late 80s. So I think I told you in an email that one of my big goals was to like collect all the popular music from my childhood. So I have almost every top 40 song from about 74 to about 87 on CD.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it took me years and years and years, but to get all that. But yeah, so I basically live in a time warp, really. Unfortunately, there are limits to that. Like I listen to an 80's radio station, so I have no idea what Lady Gaga sounds like at all. But the problem with this 80's station is that when I started listening to it a few years ago, they would play like Elvis or something. But now, well, I'm not a big Elvis fan, but my point is just that that's how old it was. And that was just a few years ago. But now they're playing like all this 90s
stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't even know. So it's now becoming all new to me, and I can't even recognize what's on it anymore. And I'm like, oh wow, am I just going to have to listen to my own CD and MP3 collection now? Because it's, I mean, the oldie station is just, I can't not recognize, I mean, any of this. It's just kind of pointless.
Yeah, that's why I play a lot of rock station, but they still do Zeppelin and stuff. But usually I have a CD player in my car, so that's how I listen to music. And then I usually like I'll know a band I want to listen to at work or something, so I'll just put the album in, or the YouTube will make playlists for me that are always kind of fun, and they'll throw something in maybe I forgot about. And then it'll get like on something like I'll have like the Megadeth one where they'll play a lot of more rock or heavier stuff
Hmm.
like the 80's. And then I'll get like another like a pop one where they'll play like just kind of like these one hit wonders. But I mean, it's too bad because I really liked music and I love going to concerts and everything. And so, and a lot of the bands that I grew up with are like now, it seems like those guys are retiring, or now nobody's touring even because of COVID, or you have to be vaxxed to even go. Some of the bands were doing that here. Megadeth was the last band I saw, and they didn't do that, which was cool. So I got to see them.
Yeah, I was glad that the Megadeth thing worked out for you.
Me too. Worried because everything seemed to like fall apart, like where they were starting to require all these things. My friend Mosca was excited because he went to see Alanis Morissette, and I really don't like her, but he does. And she played like a few weeks before Megadeth, and that was before they started mandating things. So he got to see her, so I was happy for him because he said the concert got canceled like 3 times. And that's kind of what happened with Megadeth too. And that's why I waited such a long time to buy the ticket because I was like, this is going to get canceled again. But luckily it didn't. But yeah, I'm with you with the music. I've been buying a lot of vinyl. Like Paul got me a record player for my birthday last year, and so it's great because vinyl just sounds so good. And I don't know, there's something nice about it. It's like almost like a little mini poster that you get when you get your vinyl, and now it's popular again. Walmart had some early Black Friday deals, and they had a bunch of vinyl for $15. And I went and I got the Metallica Black album, and I was gonna get Motley Crue's Greatest Hits, but they were sold out. They were sold out of a lot of stuff. They did have Michael Jackson Dangerous, and I almost bought that, but I've never actually like listened to Dangerous. But I did like Michael Jackson a lot growing up. Did you listen to him? Because he was, I mean, everybody on the globe, it seemed like at the time, liked him.
Yeah. In fact, just showing my age, I wrote a term paper about Thriller
Oh, that's awesome. I love
because
Thriller.
that tells you something about how old I am. Yeah, because in school we had this music teacher that allowed me to do it, so I was like, okay, and I don't remember what I said. It was probably really stupid, but I went through like each song and analyzed it or something. I can't remember. This is like 1984 or something. This is so long ago.
That
Um,
was popular for a long time too. Like Thriller was on the charts. It got even when I was a kid because I got a radio when I was like 1986, I think is when I got my first radio. I was 6 and almost 7, and they were playing like Gloria Estefan and stuff on the radio. Because I remember that song Bad Boy was popular.
mhm,
They were still playing stuff from Thriller because I grew up knowing Thriller. And Bad was actually more popular, or it wasn't more popular, but it was the more current than Thriller when I was a kid because I was too little. I was like 3 when Thriller came out, but I still knew all the music because they played it all the time. Kind of like Prince. Purple Rain was another one. All through the 80's, that album seemed like it got played everywhere because I was a big Prince fan too. I
mhm.
liked all that stuff. I like the rock. That's what was kind of funny in the 80's too. Like our radio stations, they would play stuff like Metallica on the same station. They'd play something like Michael Jackson. And I don't think they would do that anymore. I don't know, or they'd play like rock, but I don't know if rock's even on the radio anymore. Whenever I've heard music on the radio, there's never rock. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's like I don't think it's like in the top 40 anymore. It seems like it's always rap or hip hop
Hmm.
to hear about.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of that stuff, so I stay
yeah,
away.
yeah. I've never actually heard Metallica on the radio. I got introduced to Metallica and to metal in general by a friend who collected it. I had no idea it even, I mean, I was vaguely aware it existed, but until he made me listen to his albums, I had no idea. I, I, I just want to cycle back a bit about what made Hawaii unique. So I started off with the music. That was just part of it. The fact that we have our own local music industry, And I said that in the present tense because it still does exist, but now it's ghettoized. I mean, I have no idea who the new artists are or anything. And I suspect too that their income must have declined considerably since they get zero normal radio airplay and they're no longer on TV or anything.
And it
Um,
you said the way that, I mean, are things open back up in Hawaii, or is it still like kind of locked down?
we're still under Martian invasion conditions. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, because it sounds awful whenever you talk on the round table. It's always like, God, I feel so bad for you because we're fairly free here. Fayetteville's not as nice as like some parts of Arkansas, but Hawaii sounds bad. But like here, you can still go to a concert. And because that's how I know a lot of bands make their money now. They don't really make much
Mhm.
from selling albums anymore, or they have to charge an ass load for a t-shirt because t-shirts used to be kind of cheap when I was like growing up in the 90s when you go to a concert. Now the t-shirts are 40, $50 anymore. And I think that's
Wow.
close to their money. That's how it was in Megadeth. It's like $50 for like a long sleeve shirt.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, damn, that's a lot of money for a shirt, especially when you can go on like eBay and buy one. Of course, it's probably bootleg, but I don't know. I think that's how they get their money though, concerts and that because nobody sells albums anymore. I bet that it helps a little bit that vinyl's popular, at least with the older bands. But yeah, it seems like if you're a newer band, it would be really hard to break in.
Yeah, I have no idea how that works. I used to be big into vinyl in the 70s and 80s because, well, CDs didn't exist, and I don't know, for some reason I just didn't buy tapes. I definitely liked the huge sleeves and all the art. That's why I still have all my vinyls.
Yeah, that's cool. You started when you were a kid. I had both, but we like I had started out with vinyl, and then I got a tape player, like I said, when I was like 6, and then I just collected tapes. And then when I was in high school, I collected vinyl again, and I had a record player that was old. It was probably from the 70s. I inherited it, and then that eventually broke, and you couldn't even find a record player. And I remember trying to get a needle for my record player back in the 90s, and it was just like impossible. Now you can get like a really nice record player. So I'm glad that vinyl came back. At least that's something good.
Hmm. Yeah, the last time I had a working needle was the 90s. So I still have my old 70s record player, but actually I have a couple of record players, one from the 70s, one from the 80s, but neither are working right now. They're just basically museum pieces at this point. I started um, getting in. I started using my tape recorder, and this is where I age myself again. Not so much for music, but here's the aspect of Hawaii culture that is now pretty much dead. So back in the 70s, we used to have lots and lots and lots of Japanese TV, and Japanese TV was so big here that it used to be subtitled, and so non-Japanese people would watch it as well. So the huge thing here was anime back in the 70s, long before it became a big thing in the rest of the US. It was all subtitled in English. And we also had like Power Rangers type, live action superhero shows in the 70s. Those were also huge here.
So that's cool.
Yeah, again, all subtitled. So when I was going to elementary school, kids would talk about these shows all the time. And so we were like 20 whatever years ahead of the rest of the US in this respect.
Well, do you remember the Sanrio cartoons? Some of those I think came out in the 70s. Like they had like the people with the Hello Kitty. They did some like the Ringing Bell was one. I've never actually watched them. I've collected them, and I need to sit down and watch them. But I know with Unico was one, but
Mhm.
those were anime, and I think they came out. Some of them came out in the 70s and then the 80s, and they used to make some. But I think they were dubbed, but they probably had subtitles back when you were watching them. But like here, I actually was exposed to anime, but I didn't even know it was anime really. Like stuff would be on Nick at Night and or not Nick at Night, Nickelodeon, but like during the day. What was the one Noozles? I think that was Japanese, but it was dubbed about the koala bears. And I think it came out like in like 83 or something, but we didn't get it till like later 80s. But I loved that when I was a kid, some of that stuff that was on. And I guess Nick Jr. is what it was. And Mapletown was Japanese too, which was
Yeah.
like the Calico Critters. became like what, well, they were Mapletown, and then it was like Calico Critters, and in Japan it's the Sylvanian families or something, because I collect those. But they have a lot of cute stuff, Japanese culture. I've always wanted to go there. I'd have to bring like $1,000 with me if I went just to go toy shopping there.
I just went to Japan a couple of years ago, and that was one of my first trips to Japan in a long, long time, because it blew my mind, because of toy collectors and so on. I went to this huge collector's store, and what surprised me was how many signs were in English.
Oh yeah, people like me
And
buy stuff.
exactly, yeah. And I was overhearing this conversation with one of the clerks, and a clerk was explaining to some, I guess it was like some European person, but so neither of them, of course, speak English as the first language, but they were using English as their intermediary language, and both their English was very good. And I was very impressed, because when I used to live in Japan, um, in the 80's and 90's, nobody spoke English, so you really did have to learn Japanese to survive. I don't want to get too off topic here, but yeah, I can really relate to Jared Taylor. I really respect him. I've been a fan of. I discovered him back in 1990 when I read his book about Japan, Shadows of the Rising Sun. I highly recommend it.
I've got that, and I haven't read it. Like, it's in a stack. We're moving now, and it's so like hard the last week, like starting to move and everything. But I
Great.
need to read it. I've read all his other books. That's the only one I haven't read, and I know I need to read it. I love Japanese culture though. I'm not like super big into anime, but I do like the Miyazaki movies, and those are great. And like I said, when I was a kid, some of the ones that were on Nick Jr.
Hmm.
But I just love all the toys. There was some Disney, like they had like Oliver and Company and all these cats, and they were Japanese, and you couldn't get them at our Disney store. And their Disney store doesn't ship to the U.S., so I had to go on eBay and find them, and I had to pay more for them. But I got a few of those, and they were like super cute. And I'm like, why does the Japanese Disney store have better stuff than the ones in America? Because they really do. Their toys are better, and they seem to like cartoons that we don't like so much, or that aren't as popular in the US. Like in the US, the Disney stuff that's popular is always like the princesses, Frozen, the same stuff all the time. And then there it's like the Rescuers and Oliver and Company and stuff that like I grew up watching, but you don't even really hear about much anymore. A lot of people don't even know those cartoons when you talk about them. I was surprised because there's a guy that watches Paul's show and he loves Fox and the Hound. And it's just like that's another one of those that people like kind of forgot about. Maybe because it's so sad, but I don't know. Those are the ones I grew up watching.
Yeah, yeah. Japanese and American tastes are quite different, and here's where I'm going to go into why I, brought up the Japanese stuff when I was talking about cassette tapes. So just to show how old I am, when I was a kid, I couldn't afford a VCR, so I used to record shows on cassette tape. I used to put my tape player right up to the TV and tell everybody to be quiet.
No, I remember that. You remember when I remember we finally got a VCR, and it was one of those things we had to save up for a long time. And then later, when I was older, I guess this was in the 90's, people were hooking up VCRs together. So you
Hmm.
could record stuff. And I always wanted to know how to do that, but nobody in my family knew. And then when we moved to Arkansas, this kid I went to school with knew, and he showed me, and I was always recording stuff. I had tapes of everything. And my cousin used to make fun of me because I was in high school, and you think like you're in high school, you want to go like hang out with your friends, go on dates or something. I would be coming home to record Welcome Back Cotter like every Friday night. They had those Nick at Night marathons, and I was obsessed with them. And I just loved that show. I don't know, it's kind of cheesy now. I watch it back and I'm like, why did I like this so much? It's like because of John Travolta, I guess. But I was big into taping, and I used to record songs. You're talking about taping stuff off the radio too, and make mixed tapes. I bet
Yep, me
people
too.
don't know anything about that, or you make tapes for people was always kind of fun.
Yep, yep, did that too. Yeah. So, yeah, by the way, I saw Cotter when it was new.
Yeah. Did you like it?
Not really. I mean, when I was young, I used to be total, because I didn't when I was young, I had like no taste at all. So I'm not saying Cotter is bad or good. It's just that when I was really young, I would watch literally anything on TV.
Yeah.
So I just told my whole childhood until I got into video games, which is another big time suck. I just watched literally anything that was on TV. Then I went into the crazy video game period. Then I had this ridiculous MTV period, and when I just watched videos for hours and on end. And then I went to high school and had to drop all of that because school actually started making some severe demands on me. Um, and I can't go into more detail than that because that docks myself. But yeah, that's why my pop culture knowledge pretty much ends in the mid '80s. Like you mentioned, Gloria Estefan. I mean, to me, she's like a new-ish, quote unquote, singer because Miami Sound Machine came out around the time when I started to tune out on stuff.
Yeah, they
So
because people always don't know anything about like new music. But I did listen to music in the '90s because that's when I was a teenager. But I think the '80s was better. I know so many young people that just love the '80s, and it's just like, guys, really, or I mean, love the '90s, and I'm like, guys, the '80s were better as far as music and movies and stuff. I think anyway. I mean, the '90s was like a less decent decade, but we have a super chat. I'll read it. Hey, Private Pirate, she's real sweet. Great stream. Good to see Sasha branching out. Well, thank you. I thought it'd be fun to talk to AMREX about like, well, we can talk about, you growing up in Hawaii, and it's fun to talk about the '80s. Because even though I was older than you, like, or you were older than me in the '80s, I still listened to all that old music. And even when I got older, I got into bands that I didn't really listen to much when I was young, like Devo and things like that. Because I had friends that were like, oh no, they're really good. And then you go back and it's like, yeah, they really were pretty good. So, what did you watch in the '80s? You said you watched a lot of TV and you'd watch anything. Because I was kind of like that as a kid too. If you just put the TV on, I would sit in front of it.
yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so I used to be huge into Japanese TV, and I mean I could ramble about this subject for hours on end, but I used to watch like things like samurai dramas. I used to be big into Japanese cop shows. Um, it's interesting that like Japanese don't like certain genres very much at all. Like they don't seem to have any interest in like lawyer doctor type stuff.
So, Doogie Howser.
Probably. Here's the interesting thing about Japan is that, and this is why I think they managed to keep their culture so unique, is that they are open to foreign cultures, but they don't let them take over, if that makes any sense. Like when I talk to Europeans, for instance, they know all this American stuff backwards and forwards, which is kind of scary. And whereas with Japanese, I mean, yeah, if you want, you can watch like any American show, but it doesn't overwhelm. Like if you just turn on Japanese TV at random, you have to try really hard to find American shows.
So you didn't
Whereas, oops, sorry. Pardon me. Sorry, you dropped out. I couldn't hear you.
so did you watch Japanese shows or did you watch American?
Well, I watched both. I mean, I mentioned, for example, I used to watch Welcome Back, Kotter. I used to I don't know, maybe 50-50 for the adult stuff, and definitely for kids stuff, though I prefer Japanese kids shows to American ones. I used to really despise the name Hanna-Barbera.
Oh yeah, Hanna-Barbera would kind of steal its own cartoon, like kind of like Jabberjaw was basically Scooby-Doo with a shark.
Yep, yep,
Stuff like
exactly.
that. They were all like that. I like Hanna-Barbera, but yeah, they're not as good. But a lot of thing with I think American cartoons, they were trying to sell a toy. And then when things like Gem came out, they actually wanted to make a better cartoon. I think even He-Man, it was about to sell a cartoon also, but it was just always fun to watch it. And it did have a good lesson for kids most of the time. And I don't think it was woke or anything. Like now I think it is. I haven't seen the new He-Man. I don't want to see it. I thought about downloading it, and then so many people were like, stay away from it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just do myself a favor and stay away from it.
Yeah. I'm oversimplifying, of course. I mean, Hanna-Barbera, it depends on case by case. I don't mean to bash every single thing the company did. I like Hanna-Barbera's original primetime stuff like the Flintstones. That was originally made for prime time for adults. And so, yeah, I know it's a ripoff of Honeymooners, but I don't feel like Flintstones insults my intelligence the way some of their, like you mentioned Jabberjaw, for instance. I'm like, what the hell? It's such a, they're ripping off themselves. I like the original 69 Scooby-Doo. So the sad thing here, this is the part of the globalization bit, is that so in 1981, the Japanese TV station, it started getting Americanized and everything started going to hell from there, I found, because they cut down like all the Japanese kids shows to like 1 hour a week. It used to be multiple hours a night. So I was like, what? Only 1 hour a week? And they got really mad because then they started replacing the Japanese stuff with like they had Scooby Doo 5 days a week. And so they would play the Scooby Doo series, different ones. So they would play like the 1969 one, I think on Monday, and they would play like the various 70s and 80s ones Tuesday through Friday. And so every week you could just see how Hanna-Barbera got worse over the years.
There was one that was ago, and it was like Scooby and Shaggy and Daphne, and they were just in it, and there was no Fred or Velma. And I think it was at the 13 Goes to Scooby Doo. There was one I liked as a kid, but I haven't seen it as an adult, so it might be crap for all I know. But yeah, the Hanna-Barbera kind of lost it though after a while. Then they did start making better stuff because like Thundercats was a good cartoon and it actually had a story arc, which was weird because I went through and watched it a few years ago on Amazon Prime when I still had that. And it actually had an ending because most of the cartoons didn't, and Gem did too. Most of the time they weren't really consistent with their plots or anything, so that was kind of surprising.
Yeah, I didn't know Thundercats had an ending. So let me explain why I'm not that familiar with Thundercats. So what part of what made Hawaii unique as well was that it used to be that all the Japanese kids, this is now long extinct. Um, it used to be that the Japanese kids would have to go to a Japanese language school to preserve their culture after English school. So I was like the last generation to do this, and so the Japanese school used to conflict with Thundercats, so I only saw Thundercats on like holidays and like Christmas vacation and stuff. So I didn't even know it had an ending.
Yeah, it's a good cartoon. It's a lot better, but it's not bad. And I heard there was one that came out like in 2009, and a lot of people have told me that one's good too. It looks a little different, but a lot of people have said I should actually try to remember to download that or something and watch it. But so what were some of the American cartoons that you like to watch?
Well, there was He-Man, and here's the fun thing: I don't own a single He-Man toy. I don't like the He-Man aesthetic. I found like the figures to be really grotesque. I I, I like normal human. I like normal humanish proportions, which is why I used to like Barbie. And um, actually, the figures I have the most of are Star Wars. I have every single figure from original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back.
Wow. So you're a big fan. Those are probably
Yeah, yeah, I got, well, I don't know. I mean, I got all these around 81, so these aren't like first like seven. I have like one like 1977 Star Wars figure. When I say 70, because like all my other Star Wars figures, like Obi-Wan Kenobi or Luke Skywalker, I bought them in like 81 or 80.
yeah, but
So so I'm sure some toy snob is going to be like, oh, they're like some fifth pressing, or I don't know how they measure those things. but yeah, because I only got into the figures in 1980, so I went crazy and got every single one for the first two movies. Um, don't, don't know how I got into this because I was supposed to be talking about TV. Yeah, so
no, it's
that was my big figure thing. I told you I wasn't into the gem figures so much because I thought Mattel made nicer figures than Hasbro.
they did.
Um, but I love the Gem show. To prepare for today's show, I watched the beginning of Gem all over again, and still love it as much as I do 35 years later. I think it was a unique show for its time for a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, not only because it had the built-in MTV aspect with the music videos that propelled the plot and were surrealistic at the same time, but it also defied genres as well. I mean, it's I can't think of any other show that depicts like non-superheroes having adventures at the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And Gem had a good story too. I don't know. I always loved it. And they had good singing in it. And I went to a Gem convention like in 2012 in St. Louis, and it was so much fun. It was like mostly like gay guys and women, like were the only people at this convention, but everyone was super nice. There's probably like less than 100 people there, and they had the voice of Pizzazz, and they had the woman that did the voice of Dance. I can't think of her name. She also did the voice of Nermal on Garfield and Friends. And then when she was talking about Garfield, I was like, "Oh my God, you were Nermal, weren't you?" And she was Desiree Goyette, that's her name, and she was really sweet. And then that guy I was talking to you about that did some of the stuff on X-Men, one of the illustrators, he was there. And I've
Yeah,
got
Will.
Yes, and I've got a poster somewhere that he signed, that they all signed from GemCon. But Stormer, she was my favorite, and the woman that does her voice is kind of famous now. She does a lot of voice work and stuff. They can't ever get her to do the conventions because she charges way too much. But it was a lot of fun, and everybody was dressed like Gem, and it was good to see so many people remembered it because a lot of people had never seen it. I bet that person that didn't know Nintendo had probably never seen Gem either. But yeah, that was one of my favorites growing up. And I got a doll when I went to the toy show. It was nice. They had the one I had as a kid, glitter and gold, because my
Hmm.
dolls like got played with to death. But you're right. I think Mattel did make better toys, it's like Barbies, and then Maxi dolls. I don't know if you remember those. That's
Yeah,
probably
I do.
yeah. I met the Maxi doll girl too because she was in Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Brooke Thies, she was an actress in like the 80's, and she's the model for it. And it's funny because I met her at a convention, and I told her about it. Like I still have a Maxi doll, and she's like, "Oh my God, nobody ever talks about Maxi." Probably because people don't go to horror conventions to talk about dolls. So I was like all impressed by that. But but yeah, that was a good one. And there was a cartoon for Maxie, and it was pretty bad. And I bought it a few years ago because it was real cheap. And I was like, yeah, this isn't a good cartoon. It was probably one of those issues to try to sell the doll or something. But we were talking last night because I have some Barbies, and Moscow was talking about how he likes Skipper better. And I said, yeah, I kind of think I do too because I do have a lot of Skipper dolls, but they're all packed up. Whenever we move, I'll be able to do more toy videos too because I'll have more
Great.
places to display them because it's not like this little dumpy apartment where there's no room. But
Ye-
do you have any of the Ewoks?
No,
Wars.
no. In fact, I never saw Return of the Jedi until it came on TV for free, and by I don't know, like 1990, like maybe the late 80s or something. And by then, I had lost all interest in Star Wars. I was one of those people who got to see Star Wars in the original run. I remember in 1977 being in a long line around the corner of a street waiting to see Star Wars.
Wow.
And I still have my Star Wars back um, soundtrack album from '77, and I used to play that all the time. And so that seeing the first one when it was new, it kind of biased me, and so I didn't even see a Return of the Jedi until a friend rented it on video in '85, and I was like, man. And then Return of the Jedi, I was like, ugh. And then I tried to watch episode one and two, and one made me sick, and then two, I fell asleep in the theater. So I was like, I'm not going to see three. So that's it. I've never seen. I haven't seen like the new SJW Star Wars stuff. I can't handle it. Can't handle it.
I saw the
Uh,
one in 2015. I don't know where they killed Han Solo. Sorry if I spoiled anything for anybody that hasn't seen it. And it was boring. I remember looking at my watch. I was like, this is dumb. The girl in it was annoying. The guy was annoying. I was just like, none of the characters were cute. But I did like Return of the Jedi, but I'm a girl. I like the Ewoks. I have a bunch of the Ewoks from the 80's. Like, those are expensive now. They had some at the toy show because I used to get them at the toy show for fairly cheap, like $10. And I had Wicked and the girl, and I think I got all of them, and they're real cute. And but yeah, like I'm like you. I remember when episode one came out, I went and saw it. I was like 20, I guess, when it came out. And this guy I worked with said he thought it was better than the original Star Wars. I'm like, I like Empire Strikes Back to me is my favorite out of all of them. I think it's the best one, but I haven't seen any of the new SJW ones, and I'm not going to.
Yeah. So
We have a super chat. Hey, thank you, Kama. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, an 80s cartoon. I had all the action figures for that. Shredder and Splinter were both Japanese. Yeah, it was. I think it came on in 87, and
yes.
it was huge when I was a kid. Like, I didn't know about it till these kids. I didn't ride the bus when I was a kid because the bus didn't go where I lived. So my aunt used to pay somebody to pick me up in this van. And so in the van, me and the kids were talking and they were kind of giving a shit like if you hadn't seen it. And so I'm like, oh, I got to go home and watch it. Totally hooked on it, loved the movie, the first one. The other ones I didn't care for, but yeah, I had all the toys from the first run, and then they made so many toys after that. And that's a popular one at the toy show too this year. The Turtles kind of made a comeback. I think it must be popular with young people because there was a lot of turtle stuff there. Did you like the Turtles?
Yeah. So back in '87, there was the 5-part miniseries on TV, and it it happened to air during I think it was like during Christmas break, so I got to see it, and I was blown away, and I was happy that it became a regular series. I so yeah, I did enjoy it at the time.
Did you see the movie?
No, I've never seen any of the films at all, so I don't have.
The one from 1990, the rest of them I'd stay away from. Like they're not that good. Like the first one's fun. And the comics are good too. I've read most of the comics and they were pretty close, or not pretty close. There's differences, but they're good, but there's a little bit of difference. Like April's not a reporter. I think she worked for Baxter Stockman in the comic books, the guy that turned into the bug. But I enjoy all of it. I like the cartoon and the first movie, and I was obsessed with it. I remember they had Ninja Turtle cereal. We used to buy it. It was kind of like a ripoff of Lucky Charms. It had little marshmallows in it, and it had a thing too. If you went to see the movie, you got or you got something where you sent a UPC symbol in, and you got a big poster. And then I had posters from the fair where you throw the dart, and I wish I still had some of those. I don't know what happened to them. Donatello was my favorite turtle. But they make some great action figures of that now too that come out, but they're kind of pricey. I was talking to my friend about that last week. I think NECA makes them, and but yeah, like turtles were one of my favorite things. Kind of like we were talking about Mario earlier. I went through that little phase when I was like, I don't know, probably 88, 89, where I was obsessed with the Mario stuff and the Ninja Turtles. Yes, and hey, thank you. My high school marketing teacher in the 80s, who's buying those ugly Cabbage Patch dolls? I don't get it. Oh, did you like Cabbage Patch Kids? They're probably not, huh?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
No. No, I was never into the Cabbage Patch anything. I mean, I remember the mania, but I didn't participate in it at all. I'm more into like traditional stuffed animals. I don't.
I loved kids. I was real when they got popular, and you couldn't find one in Rockford where I lived. And me and my dad, he was big into flea markets and stuff, and we went to a flea market, and they had some, and they were magical. And I went home and I told my aunt, and because I think they were kind of expensive, and I told her, and she thought they were an off-brand because they had those other ones that were I don't remember what they're called. They're like Cabbage Patch Kids, but they're kind of a knockoff. I think they were called Baby Doll or something. And so we went to the flea market because she thought maybe I was confused. And she goes, sure enough, they were real Cabbage Patch dolls, but
Wow.
they were the color of Buddy. And she goes, do you want them? Because all my dolls were like blonde hair, blue eyed dolls, except for Strawberry Shortcake. And I was like, yeah, I didn't care. And so I had these little black Cabbage Patch Kid dolls. It's real cute. There's pictures of me with them. And then later, the woman that sold the dolls had a preemie that was magical. So I had like my little magical family. I didn't care. I just wanted one. And then she went to visit our family that we had family that live in Atlantic City or used to. And she went up there and they had them in some shop there and they had them like wall to wall. And she took a photo and I've still got the photos more. And she got me a blonde hair, blue eyed one there. But so I had a whole bunch. And then when they started making them more available, we had a ton of them. She had like a crib full in the basement and I wasn't allowed to touch them. And then later she ended up giving all of them to me. So I've still got most of them. So I have a lot of them, and I had some of the Jesmere ones, which are kind of expensive. They weren't made in like China; they were made in like Italy and France and somewhere else. Some of them go for quite a bit of money online, but I loved them. I had the twins, and Koosas were cool. I also love the Furskins. Those were the guy that did Cabbage Patch dolls. They're like big bears, and they're country. They're supposed to be from the South, and they're super cute. I got some of those at the toy show. Do you remember those?
No, I don't.
I know Mosca hates those, but I think they're cute. They had them at Wendy's when we were kids, like in the kids' meals, or maybe you had to buy them. I don't know. Fast food places used to have stuff. You probably remember this, where you could get glasses
Hmm.
and even tapes. Like I remember one year they had like Back to the Future, and it was like $5 at McDonald's. But they don't do that anymore. In fact, I heard they're going to get rid of plastic toys at
Yep,
McDonald's.
yep.
So, which is too bad. The last ones they had were pretty good. They had Disney, and I got a bunch of those. They're actually pretty cute because for a while they're really cheaping out on the toys, because the toys at McDonald's when in the 80's were great, and even in the
Hmm.
90's to some degree. They had those Fraggle Rocks. Did you like the Muppets at all?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. So in the 70s, I was huge into Sesame Street, mostly for the Muppets.
Same
Um,
here.
for some reason, though, I wasn't into the Muppet. I mean, I watched the Muppet Show, but I just never really fell in love with it. So I know this is going to disappoint you, but um, I'm not even sure if I saw the first Muppet movie, and I definitely didn't see any others. Um, because yeah, I'm basically a Sesame Street type person. I did watch Fraggle Rock though.
I love Fraggle. You should
Yeah.
watch the movies. The first three are really good, and they're better than the show, I think, because I'm kind of like you. I'm more of a Sesame Street person. I like those Muppets better. I do love the Muppets though. I love Miss Piggy. I know people hate her, but I think she's funny. But yeah, the movies are great. In fact, I took my friend. He's like Paul's age, and he liked the Muppet Show. He'd never seen the movies, and I didn't know that. I had thought he had seen them. And for his birthday in August, The Great Muppet Caper was playing in theaters for like one day only. And so I asked him, like, do you want to go? And he's like, yeah. And I thought he'd already seen it. We went, he'd never seen it. And he's like, that was great. And so you should check those, the Muppet movie, The Great Muppet Caper, and Muppets Take Manhattan. Muppets Take Manhattan is my favorite one, but they're actually really good. And I think they're better than the Muppet Show. Because I don't even really remember when I was a kid, I didn't watch the Muppet Show because it was already pretty much off the air by the time I was able to like know what was on TV. And I liked Miss Piggy though, because I had a Miss Piggy doll when I was real little. But I love the movies when I was a kid, and I watched, and I love Follow That Bird. That I love Big Bird too. Somebody in the chat saying that. Yeah, don't let them ruin the Muppets for you now. I've said this before because my friend Oscar's like that. He like hates them now or hates Sesame Street. I'm like, yeah, it's not the same people doing it.
Yep.
They're
Yeah.
they if you like, just ignore it and just pretend it doesn't exist. That's how I go on. I just pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Whoever write. Yeah, the Muppets now, I consider them to be like a skin suit, if you know that expression.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, yeah, they look the same, but they've been taken over by the wokeness.
They have. And it's like I know that a lot of it, like some of the early stuff was a little bit like propaganda. Somebody said it's always been woke, but I went through when we had HBO Max and I was watching some of the early ones because I like the Muppet skits and stuff. And the earlier ones were cute. There was one where Cookie Monster got amnesia and he thought he was or he thought he was a bird, and then he thought he was different things. He was talking to different people on Sesame Street. I don't think it was malicious. Now they're just using it to cram down, try to get kids to take vaccines and do all this. But it's like originally, I think it was more to tell kids be nice to each other and things like that. And then like Snuffle Up, I guess I loved him, and they were real cute. And Jim Henson, had a big hand in that, and he's gone. All those guys are gone. I don't. The only one still alive is Frank Oz and the Dave Goles, I think. And I don't know if he even did anything on. I'm trying to think. Did he do The Count? I don't remember because he's like those are the only two guys left that had anything to do with the Muppets. Or no, Jerry Nelson did The Count. He's dead too. Dave Goles, he's the guy that did Gonzo, but I'm trying to think if he did any like Sesame Street Muppets, and I'm not sure if he did.
I'm not either.
So
But
don't let them like Big Bird for you, because Carol Spinney was a really nice man. I wrote him a letter like probably 10 years ago, and he like wrote me back and he signed a picture for me, and then he drew Oscar the Grouch and Big Bird on the envelope, and I've got it all framed, and it was really cool because the picture I sent him, he painted. Like, he was a very talented guy, and he's a real sweet man. And there's a good documentary about him. So it's like I wouldn't let them, like you said, it's a skin suit. That they're not the Muppets. It'd be like if somebody else was Pee Wee Herman or something. They're not. Elvira, they were talking about doing that with her. She's going to have her daughter play her, and I was like, well, she's not Elvira to me. And it's just like I think a lot of people would think that too. And no, Bert and Ernie are not gay. Like, that's another stupid thing they did. They even came out and said like that they weren't, like, long ago, because that rumor circulated. Because I had this gay friend and he told me that. I was like, bullshit. Like, this was in the 90's. I said, no, he's not. They're not. And then they even came out and they said, no, they're puppets. They don't have sex. They're not sexual. They were supposed to be based on Frank Oz and Jim Henson. They were good friends, and they were showing kids that you could be opposite and still be friends. So I don't. It's amazing how they can just trash and ruin something that's supposed to be sweet for kids. I'm surprised they don't ruin Mr. Rogers for everybody too. Did you watch Mr. Rogers growing up?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Mr. Rogers. And he was a nice man too. And I've heard people try to say things about him. It's like, don't even go there because we know it's bullshit. KMX, thanks again. Does Miss Piggy have a crush on Kermit? Yeah, that was the whole thing. She practically sexually harassed Kermit. Like if you watch any of the movies or anything. Yeah, that's kind of what was funny about it. But yeah, they got married in like the Muppets Take Manhattan at the end, and that was my favorite because it had all the Sesame Street Muppets at the church.
Wow.
So you should watch that one. That's my favorite one, but they're actually better than the Muppet Show. Look at Buddy; he's just got to be the center of attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you like Pee Wee at all? I know that that was a little bit. Well, that came out in '80. The movie came out in '85.
Did I like what? Pardon me?
Pee Wee?
No. I watched like Pee Wee like once on Saturday morning, and I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. So I don't really have any particularly strong feelings about him one way or the other. So yeah, that's I'm sorry.
That's all right. The movie's funny, like Big Adventure, because it's different than the show. But I loved that when I was a kid. I remember the first time I saw it, and I just loved it. But yeah, kids shows were definitely better in the '80s, I think, too, because it's like, what the hell? I don't even know what kids watch now. I guess Blue's Clues and stuff. And that was kind of cute back in the '90s too, because I had a friend and we used to watch it because she had a crush on the guy Steve. And I'd heard he became a drug addict and he got like fired from the show. I don't know if that's true. That's just what I heard. But it was kind of cute. And then they started making it like, oh, look at all these like gay people in this pride parade and stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? Why is that on news? You know? And it's like, so they've ruined, I don't know, a lot of this stuff is just seems like shit to me. Because I wouldn't even watch kids shows as an adult if I thought it was something like, I don't know, something cute or creative or something, but a lot of the stuff doesn't seem all that creative to me. Or then they remade Muppet Babies. That's another thing, and it looks stupid. And then I heard they said Gonzo was trans in it. That's what Mosca told. I think.
What?
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, doesn't exist to me. So.
Yikes! That's because I used to watch Muppet Babies. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
About wokeness, So because I'm really out of touch with all this modern stuff, every night now I basically live in this time warp. So the only TV I watch now is a local station here runs Seinfeld reruns from the '90s, and I mean that show has a lot of problems, but it seems like a different universe, and I'm actually amazed some of the episodes even air at all because it'd be so offensive now. The other thing I watch is I mentioned to you in an email, I think, that a Discovery Family shows G.I. Joe and Transformers from the '80s. And even in those, I can sort of see, well, not so much, not Transformers, but even G.I. Joe, I can already see the seeds of wokeness because they have a magical ski expert on G.I. Joe. I'm like, what are the odds of that? And then they have like this mountaineer guy, and he's also magical. I'm like, what? I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't even think about it, but now as an adult, it's just so obvious that they're trying to, break stereotypes or something.
Well, they do that with the book series. I like this is girl stuff. I don't expect you know this, but there was a show, it was a show, but it was a book series called Babysitter's Club. And I think I was talking to Adam about this or somebody about this, but like there was diversity in that. Like there was a black girl and there was like a girl that was Japanese American and the rest of them were white. And then they redid it on Netflix, I guess. I haven't watched it, but they replaced some of the white girls with like a Hispanic girl and something else. And I'm just like, why do they do that? And then all these people were like so excited about it, and I was like, why are you guys celebrating this? It's dumb, and I don't know why they have to do that. Like, just make your own shit. Why do you have to always do that with, it's always white people that get replaced too. They wouldn't do it with anybody else, or they'll replace men with women. That's another thing. Like I heard James Bond is going to be.
Yeah.
Now who the hell is going to watch that? Because I've never seen a James Bond movie, and I have no interest in ever seeing one. So it's like, who's going to be the demographic of people that's going to go see that? Because men are the ones that like James Bond films, and I wouldn't think that they're going to want to go see that. Oh, Black too. Oh yeah, Wonder Years is Black. Did you ever watch that? That's a good show from the 80's.
No, I know I mean, I've seen it like a few times, but yeah, that was from the period when pretty much started tuning out TV, so I'm not that familiar with it. I have heard about the new magical remake. I mean,
What is that?
it's,
Magical.
it's
Uh,
just sad. Yeah,
oh,
the
I've been watching is. Did you ever watch The Golden Girls?
I've only seen that a few times as well. So yeah, I was thinking that's another topic that would disappoint you because I don't really have that much experience with it.
It's like one of those shows, like I had a Blanche ornament for putting the tree up yesterday, and everyone was so excited that I had a Blanche ornament. But that's a show you should check out because at first Paul didn't like it, and then we watched a couple, and then he wanted to watch more and more, and now every night before bed we watch Golden Girls, and
Wow.
we're going through them, and it's like they're really funny. And that's another show, like you're talking about Seinfeld, where some of the jokes they could not get away with now. And I know leftists are the ones that produce that because there are some themes in there that are kind of like the seeds, like Blanche has a gay brother and stuff like that. And then just the little things like that. There's one where Dorothy's son marries a black woman, but the whole thing was like the magical people didn't like that her fiance was white. And I don't think they do it like that now either. And the thing with Dorothy, she was upset because the woman was so much older than her son. But, so they had a little bit of that in Golden Girls, but it wasn't that bad. And most of it was just kind of silly and funny. And that's why people like it because you can just kind of watch it and laugh. Like Married with Children, I always thought was funny too, and I liked it because it never was political. Did you see that, or was that's probably after you kind of stopped watching TV?
Yeah, that's kind of after. I mean, I've seen several. I know the premise. I've seen some episodes, but yeah, I never really got into it. It's funny too how that show used to be controversial back in its day, but now it's no one would even blink.
Well, they would be because of the fat jokes, because I like didn't like fat women, and he was kind of a
Oh,
sexist.
true.
They wouldn't like that. So there's things and they did make fun of gay people because there's one where Peg goes dancing with this guy every night, and she kind of likes him, and Al doesn't care, but then the guy's gay, and she doesn't know, and the husband comes over to get on to Al about like your wife is seeing my husband or whatever. And it was funny. He was like, and he goes, "You do know you're a guy, right?" And there's all these jokes about it, that they couldn't get away with now. And like the guy comes in and he makes Al a meal and everything. And Al likes him because he cooks for him. And there's all these jokes. And at the end, they're dancing and everything. And she was talking about how hot this guy was. His name was Andy. And then she's going on this, and Al goes, "He was a homo, Peg." And it was just like they couldn't do that now. Like so, some of the 80's was, I don't know, the 90's I guess. Well, because yeah, you said Seinfeld, so there was some stuff in the 90's, like even South Park. I'm like looking back, and it's like even some of the stuff from like in the 2000s. There's no way in hell they'd get away with that. Because I don't know, I haven't watched South Park in a long time. The last time I watched it, I thought it wasn't funny, so I kind of gave up on it. I think it's kind of like The Simpsons. It's been on the air too long. Maybe they should.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I used to be into The Simpsons, but after like what was it like? I don't know, season 5 or 6, I stopped. And similarly with South Park, I watched South Park from the very beginning, and I don't know. I After a few years, I kind of walked away.
Yeah, me too. Like season 9 or something. The last ones I really kind of liked were their ones where they do Imagination Land, and there's all these characters from like the 80's and Strawberry Shortcakes there and the Care Bears and all this stuff, and it's kind of funny. And that was the last ones I remember. But the last time I saw it, it just wasn't that good. And I don't know if this is true, but I've heard Matt and Trey don't have much to do with it anymore. That other people kind of write it and do it, and maybe explain why. But they probably
Hmm.
can't agree with as much now anyway, with the PC police around every corner now, where you can't like make jokes. Maybe they made so much money on it. Maybe they don't give a shit. They're just like whatever. So I don't know. I think it's been on too long. A lot of those shows have. But
Yeah.
so it's been like over an hour. I'm like kind of hungry, so I've had like a rough week. We should do this again though and talk. Maybe we could like even think of just like certain things from whatever to talk about.
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you're willing, yeah. No, I'd be happy to. I mean, I was hoping that I could come back someday.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you can't come on with me and Adam. I just like the time thing is what makes it hard. If he stayed up a little later, he goes to bed at like 5 o'clock or something. So I was talking
Wow.
about it when we went to Illinois. He goes, yeah, I'm a grandpa. He keeps these really weird hours. It just right now has been rough because we're moving and everything, and I'm working and trying to sell stuff and doing. This place is a disaster area. So I'm trying. Once things get caught up, I'll have like more time to do this kind of stuff. But yeah, we will. Like we can do this like maybe once a month or something. It'd be fun.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, because I don't have anyone to talk to about this. I mean, you're the first live person I've ever spoken to about Gem ever.
really, well,
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about talking on the phone with people, but I talk on the phone with a lot of people too. So you can like when I'm at work, I like to talk because it helps like the time go by faster, and it's a way to like catch up with people too. So if you ever want to just talk without like live stream, even we can do that. Um,
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's an honor. Yeah. No, because wow. Yeah. I'm just blown away. It's just killing me now that in, that I'm able to not only just to speak to you, but to get super chats from KMAX and so on. It's kind of frustrating. On it, what kind of frustrating thing? This is nobody's fault. It's just the way it is on the on the weekly things that I do with Paul is that normally I'm like second or third, and normally KMAX is like 10th or something. So he says something really cool, and I have no way to respond to it. So because I'm on too early, and that's why the last time I was hoping that Paul could get him on. I was hoping Paul would bump me and get KMAX ahead of me so that I could.
he tried to.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know when we're moving KMAX. It depends on when we're getting Wi-Fi. It probably won't be till February or March. They said November, December. Then now they're saying February, and they don't work when it rains, and they probably won't work when it's cold. It's one of those things. So it's like, who the hell knows? But you've seen, well, you guys haven't seen, but I have a lot of books, and I have a lot of toys, and I have a lot of shit I need to get rid of. So we're just kind of doing it in baby steps now, which is nice because moving's overwhelming, especially when you have a lot of stuff. So doing it a little at a time is nice. And I want to do maybe another video on the Christmas tree. We put it up yesterday. Well, actually, I didn't even put it up. Mosca and somebody else kind of put it up, and I was working on something else, and we put ornaments on it. But I got so many ornaments that I found in a box upstairs, and so it'd be nice to go through because a lot of those are kind of 80s themed and stuff. Like I have a Donkey Kong arcade that makes noise, and like all this stuff would just be fun to record. And then I got a lot of my Funko Pops are out now, and I bought that glowworm house, and I got that all set up. I just need to get some batteries for it because it's supposed to kind of make music, and I don't know, it looks pretty cool. But so when I get caught up on stuff, boy, he is just such an attention.
Yeah.
He's really a sweet little guy though. But yeah, it'd be fun. But yeah, I'll give you my number if you want to talk sometime, or I can call you because I don't think it. Now we don't have to really worry about like long distance and stuff like that. That's one good thing about the globalism, I guess. Like you don't have to worry about that kind of thing because you remember when it was long distance to talk to anybody like out
Oh
of.
yeah.
It's funny because my best friend Mosca, he lived in like a town 5 miles from me when we were in high school. That was considered long distance. So when we were in high school, he used to call me and he'd have these crazy phone bills. Like he had a $500 phone bill one time. And he called me one time from his grandma's because we didn't have internet back then. He called me from his grandmother's house, and his grandmother got this like $100 phone bill, and she called my dad and started cursing him out. And he told her to like F you and hung up on her. And it was kind of funny. And it was because Mosca called me from her house. We talked on the phone all the time back in the day because we lived in the country and there was nobody to talk to, and it was crazy expensive. And then that was one kind of nice thing about cell phones, so you can talk to people and not have to worry about a bill. So even doing this is like really incredible because you know what it was like growing up. We didn't have this kind of thing where you could do this.
I when I lived in Japan, I used to have a vegetarian diet because get this, I have to save money because even calling locally in Japan is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to save as much money as possible for my phone bills.
Yeah, no, I get bad phone bills too. But that's one nice thing about all this, I guess. But yeah, I'll give you my number and we
So
can talk.
thanks. Yeah, I'll give you mine.
About like the 80s and go more into it and everything. And just,
Yeah,
and then
it's
you
been
don't have to
great.
worry about being doxxed if we're just talking on the phone too, if you had to tell me anything. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that
it's been fun. And thank you so much for talking. It was a lot of fun. I always like talking about this stuff. So
yeah, so do I. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much live in the past.
me too.
I can't because I mean when I go out the door, it's like Martian invasion 24/7. I just can't take it. I like watching all this old stuff. You know when
Before.
yeah,
Yeah, I hear you. I went to Sam's the other day and there was all these people on their phones wearing their mask and it's just like
it's
what the hell? Like I don't know. It just and then there was some woman had her little kid muzzled up and I just kind of wanted to punch her in the face and I'm like, yeah, this is making me angry. I just want to get the hell out of here. But you get out of Fayetteville, it's not as bad. Fayetteville's pretty bad and all this stuff. And it's like I know what you said. I have a friend and he's an older guy. He just had a birthday, he turned 69 and we talked before because he grew up, in the 70s and 60s and 70s. And he'd always talk about that. We talk about the past. And he goes, yeah, I just like to live in the past. And it's like, I'm kind of like that too, in a way. And I wouldn't even mind new things. I mean, I do if there's like a movie that's out or something that's new that looks interesting. But honestly, I find more things I haven't discovered from like the past. And I mean, even the past, like old past, like 30s and 40s for like movies and things like that. That's like there's better stuff even back then than a lot of the garbage that's out now. So I don't even really care about keeping in touch with what's going on anymore. So
yeah, yeah, I've changed quite a bit in that way because back in the 90s, I did try to keep up with Hollywood movies and I'd go to the theater all the time, but now like 25 years later, I just don't care.
I'm like
And it's
that. I used to love going to movies. I went to movies all the time. Me and my friend Oscar, we used to go like once a week, even in like the
Mhm.
2000s. There were still some decent movies out, and every time I go to the movies now, it's to go see something that's like 40 years old. Like me and Paul went to see Carrie, the 40th anniversary. Like everything we go to now is something old. They're just re-releasing in the theaters. Like December, My Neighbor Totoro is going to be in theaters for a couple days, and hopefully someone will go with me. But I plan to go see that because it'll be fun to see that in the theater. But yeah, I'd rather just go see old stuff. It's fun to go to the movies, and at least I know I'll like the movie, and it's not going to try to shove some message down my throat.
And it's original and it's not a remake of something.
Yeah, no, everything's a remake or a sequel or a prequel or I don't know. I even kind of want to see that Halloween Kills movie, and I asked my friend, he saw it, and he said it's okay. Like it's so it's probably not anything like the old Halloween movies. So I'm sure it's probably worth skipping too. But every once in a while, I do just kind of want to see, but usually it's disappointing. But yeah, we'll do this again for sure, and we'll talk. And it was fun. I always enjoy listening to you on Friday. That's always kind of fun for me. Like I'll be at work and I get to listen to everybody.
Well,
So
thank you. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
thanks everybody for the super chats and everything. And I guess I'll see you guys on Thursday. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.